Welcome back. In this lecture we will discuss data to algorithm bias. So here's our objective. And so, earlier we looked at this relationship between data, algorithm, and user interaction in the context of bias and machine learning. In this lecture we will talk about how different biases in data can affect algorithmic output. And so here's a proper definition of data to algorithm bias. Okay, so let's talk about a few different types of data to algorithm bias. So first is measurement bias. And this arises from the selection, use, and measurement of the features. And so an example that we talked about earlier was the Compass software used to determine likelihood of rearrests leveraged features based on friends and family of the offender who had previously been arrested. And this was a biased feature because it was because individuals who were in certain communities had a higher likelihood of having friends and family with previous arrests. Next type of bias we will discuss is omitted variable bias. And this occurs when an important variable is simply not present in a model. Now this one could be very tricky because sometimes you just might not have access to certain types of information. But it's important to get an understanding of what this looks like. So one example could be you have a model that has very high precision, but you can't surpass a certain level of recall for classification. And that might be because you have an omitted variable. There might be some other variable that you could use to create a feature that could account for the rest of the samples that you were not able to predict. Representation bias is bias that originates from how a population was sampled. Now this does not have to do with the sampling methodology itself, how the individuals are selected. It more has to do with what was the initial criteria that led to selection of certain individuals. So this could be what you see here from ImageNet, which is the library of images that has been used over the years to evaluate different deep learning models. You see that most of the images are from Western countries, with a heavy emphasis on the United States and Europe. And so therefore there's going to be fewer pictures of people with darker skin colors, fewer pictures of people who have Asian features or Pacific Islander features. And this is a direct result from the data being created in places that are highlighted on this map. The next type of bias is called aggregation bias. And this is a really interesting one because a great example here is showing this regression model where we have these two variables. And we see that when you consider all that data together, you have this linear relationship that goes that way. But then if you cluster the data into these three clusters and then do regression on each individual cluster, you have each individual group has a linear relationship that's the exact opposite. And there's a couple examples of this. There are that have specific names. So one is called the modifiable areal unit problem, and this occurs when different spatial scales can yield different results because the spatial scales may abstract away something that's important. We'll talk about Simpson's paradox in a moment, but another example of this aggregation bias occurs in the medical field, and that is why when you look at evaluating a drug or developing a diagnosis tool in the medical industry, demographics become really important. And making sure that kind of your demographic mix of variables is representative, is accounted for when you do this kind of analysis is key, because issues like what's shown in that graphic frequently occur in that field. So let's talk about Simpson's paradox. And so here is where an observed trend that occurs in the aggregate disappears or reverses for subgroups. And we'll talk about this with an example. So this arises in a couple different cases, but there was this 1973 lawsuit where University of Berkeley was sued for discrimination. And the idea behind the lawsuit was male applicants were more likely to be accepted than female applicants, 44% versus 35%. But then when you break it down by department, and you look at individual departments, you see that women are, in most cases, being accepted at a higher level than men. You see 82 versus 62, 68 versus 63. In the cases where the departments where men are getting accepted at a higher rate than women, it's by only a couple percentage points. So this tells a much different story than the aggregate, and the question is, why does this occur? Well, when you look at the overall applicant population, you see some of the very large departments that have a high overall acceptance rate. So even though men do poorly compared to women with only 62%, there's a much larger applicant population that gets accepted to these easier departments here, because more men just happen to be applying. And so because of that, this skews the aggregate data and gives you numbers that look like that. And so this is a very important aspect of machine learning. A very important bias to consider in machine learning is understanding this Simpson's paradox. So there's a few other data to algorithm biases that are of note. There's sampling bias. So this is a little bit different from representation bias because this comes from the sampling method itself, especially where it's non-random. So if you do any research in social networks and use what's called snowball sampling, where you sample an individual and then sample their connections, that is not a random sample, and that is susceptible to a sampling bias. Longitudinal data fallacy, this is kind of like the time series version of aggregation bias, where changes over time for an aggregated group of individuals differ significantly than if you viewed those changes over time as cohorts. So very similar to the idea behind aggregation bias. And then linking bias, this deals with attributes in a social network don't represent the real world. So you could think of someone who uses a tool like LinkedIn as sort of a Rolodex just to keep track of their contacts and may over time gather hundreds or even thousands of connections in LinkedIn, but is not truly an active user of that platform, doesn't interact with the vast majority of those people hardly ever, but are just using that as a way to keep track of people they have met. Other people may use the social media platform as a way to communicate and a way to interact. And there's often very difficult to tell between the two, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the social behavior of those people either. The person who is not super active on LinkedIn may go to a conference or an event and may be extremely social. So this concludes the section on data to algorithm bias.